Okay, we
Yes,
can
but
do it. I
go
can
ahead.
cut off the beginning of this. Okay,
Okay.
so let's start over. Okay, hello, this is Andy Graham, Andy Lee Graham, and I'm in Indiana, and I'm talking with Rich Gedney. He's in Atlanta, Georgia,
Mm,
and
can,
I'm going to interview him today on a subject of real estate. Rich, can you walk me through what happened that we kind of worked together on?
well, my mother passed away almost 2 years ago, and then when that happened, we lived a bit off of her money uh, for a number of years because she had had a stroke, and I took care of her in her home. It was our shared home actually. And so after she passed away, I really didn't have any money. It wasn't on Social Security yet. And so I was always robbing Peter to pay Paul, not having enough money to do anything or even pay bills. So I decided that I couldn't keep doing that. I would have to end up selling my home. So, I talked to Andy. Andy was in real estate and was a broker for many years. So I asked him if, what I should do. And he suggested, yes, that's a good idea to go ahead and sell it because, you just can't keep living like that. It's hard to sell your home. It was in my family for 3 generations. It was my grandparents, my mother's, and now mine. So, Andy took me through it, and we found a good broker. I mean, excuse me, a sales agent, wasn't a broker. And we went back and forth a bit, but I didn't have any money to pay for renovation. So that was a major thing. So what you can do, and what some people may not know or may know, is that you can get a company, and there's not a lot of them. You have to search for it that can do renovations for you if you can't afford it, and then you just pay them at closing. So that's what I was able to find. The first one was, luckily it didn't happen with them because they were not a very reputable company and had been sued. And I did some research and found out not to go with them. And then we eventually found another company that was really good, and they suggested turning uh, the old uh, dining room into another bedroom. And that's one thing that Andy said, that it's very hard to find it to sell a 2 bedroom home with 1 bathroom. So we turned the dining room into the third bedroom, and it made it much easier to sell. And so we just spruced everything up, redid the kitchen, opened up some of the doorways, and redid the bathroom as well. Just put a little, what's new, people are starting to do now, is putting in these electric fireplaces in the living rooms. And we did that, made it look really nice. And so that was it basically. Andy's helped me through all this and kept me going, because there was many times where I was wanting to give up, and I didn't think it was the right thing to do, and I was trepidatious, and but Andy held my hand and
How
kept
long did
telling me,
this take,
you can keep
Rich?
going. Oh God, this
How long
took a
was this whole process?
year and a half. Took a year and a half. And it was mostly because of me, because I had stopped at one point. And then the agent that we found, he kept with me, which is extremely rare to have an agent that will stick with you like that. And he kept saying, "Come on, let's go ahead and let's renovate. I'll find another person for you." And they did. And Andy talked with them and helped me with them. And so the renovation itself was extremely quick, though. It was about a month. So because they knew that as a very um, well, not a real big company. It was a husband and wife that owns the business, but they have a lot of projects going, and they had enough people that were on their paycheck to come in, just with any type of construction. You throw enough people at it, it's going to get done quickly. And they did. And they did a really nice job, and that's what sold the home. If I hadn't have renovated it, I would have not made as much money on the sale. I probably would have lost $100,000. But because I did renovate, I gained another $100,000, in the sale. So,
So what happened here is when we began talking, I started walking through Rich on the process of how to find a real estate agent. So he went out and talked and arranged to have like up to, I guess he got about 6 or 7 of them. I was trying to say to get 10. And I walked through the process of how to determine if a real estate agent was a good real estate agent or a bad real estate agent. And then we kept going through the whole process. So all the way through the process, what I was doing was just being an armchair quarterback, explaining the pros and cons through this situation. And it did take about a year and a half, and it was quite a complicated situation because of doing a large amount of work. It was a pretty expensive amount, and then getting paid at closing because they went through the process and they got their money at closing. So everything came together just here a week ago. So I'm very proud of Rich that he got this done because it's quite, when you have all these contracts, what happens is a lot of real estate agents don't understand contracts. They don't understand the fears and the personal problems of a contract. And so I went through with Rich on all these different processes and just kind of explained in a way that made it him feel comfortable. And I always say that the job of a real estate agent is just to make you feel safe. And I think I'm proud that he kept with it because at the end of the day, everybody can sell their property, but a lot of people have so many questions that they cannot do it. So it took about a year and a half. How did you approach this contract? You had a lot of trepidations when you were signing this contract for the construction work.
One thing Andy suggested was and which is what the agent did. I just followed Andy's lead on these things, and I had him come out and go over the contract with me line by line, which made me feel better. And I think that's extremely important to go over and understand it, because there was like 1 or 2 sections that I read online, the contract that was sent to me, that I didn't understand, and it almost stopped me from signing the contract. But Andy said, no, get this guy to come out, the real estate agent to come out, go through it with you line by line, and we did, and then I better understood it, and then I signed it. So I would say don't give up. I think it's very important. I'm 60, I'll be 64 this year. So we go through a lot of things in our life, especially when we have a loved one pass away or someone we took care of, or just how life has knocked us around, and to have someone in your corner, someone to help you through these steps, is very important. So that's what Andy did. Andy helped me understand this. And going back to getting the number of agents, every agent that came in, I learned why Andy kept saying, get 10 agents in there, because you'll learn. Every agent that came in, I learned more about the process and about which agent probably would be best for me to get along with them. And then I finally met Campbell and his wife. This was a husband and wife team. And they just worked really well. And, it just was a good fit. And they kept with me. And that's very important, is to have someone in your corner like Andy. So I had Andy and I had this husband and wife team. So, but do exactly what Andy said. If you are selling your home, you get as many agents in as you can, because everyone you will learn from. There, more things about what needs to be done, or perhaps doesn't need to be done, or if they're overselling you or underselling, So anyway, that's, I think that's very important. That's a very important part.
Yeah, on the initial part, what I was saying, even if you already knew that you was going to hire your uncle or whatever to be the real estate agent, each agent, in a sense, starts pointing out the pros and cons of the property, and they start telling you the weaknesses and whatever. And you can get a laundry list of things to consider, because they're looking at it. Now, this was Rich's mother's house, and he lived with his mother. So it was a very personal thing. And I said, you got to be real careful here, Rich, especially if you're going to try to sell it for sale by owner, because I was very discouraging him a lot on the for sale by owner, because I said, this is too personal. Okay, when you're selling, maybe your house with the whatever, there's times when for sale by owners a great idea. And right now, it's actually very easy to sell a house for sale by owner, depending on your personal connection with that property. If I walked him through all the different things and he started thing, then I would try to recommend that he put up a whiteboard. I don't know if this ever worked so good, but of all the prices, okay? Because it's you get a visual. So if you put up a visual way, a lot of people want to remember all this stuff, and it really is not the way to do it. You should all have this on paper and should always be tracking all the prices. And then it's really good if you have it visual that you can sit there and say all the different options going back and forth. And Rich was, I mean, but what people don't realize, and it's a very stressful thing. I've actually sold real estate where I'll never forget when this guy he bought a $150,000 house like 30 years ago. It was say $400,000 house right now, and he wanted to sign the contract, but he started crying. Okay. Me and his wife kind of went up and hugged him. And I said, you got the money. You're a whiz. You're a genius on computers. You deserve this house. Okay. It was, but a lot of times it's very stressful and it needs, a lot of times it's very helpful to have two or three people in your side. And when you're single, it becomes much more stressful. I mean, a husband and wife team, which is a lot better. Or, I don't know. I mean, I've sold mostly when I sold real estate, I sold about 80 properties a year. More on the commercial and the residential investment property because I happen to buy like 60 homes. But I understand how to make a contract. There's like 8 parts to a contract, and these were things I was telling Rich. On the contract, you signed the contract for the construction, and then we also talked about how often to talk with the contractors.
Well, one thing I think I'll go back and then I'll go to that question as well, is that it is important to write these things down when you go over with the real estate agents. Like Andy said, that helped me a lot to visually see it. And also I did the whiteboard because you want to put in there, what you're going to make, what would this property, if I just sell this property as is, how much would I make? If I sold this, if I renovated it, and got those figures, how much would I make after that? That's extremely important. So, and I'm sorry, Nick, going back to what was the question again?
Well, you're doing the process. So the whole thing's a process, and each one of these things is like a stepping stone. And a lot of real estate agents just act like you already understand everything about a sale, and they don't walk you through the process. I was very upset quite on how the actual offer was presented. But I truly recommend that anybody that's entering into a contract is a meeting of the minds. Okay, and there has to be it's legal part of the contract, a meeting of the minds. And if you're not having the two people talking to each other in person, understanding each other.
Okay, I got you. Because we were talking about how often should you talk to your agent. Okay, so Andy had said, really look, don't feel bad about even talking to your agent multiple times a day, because you have to have a good understanding. You have to have communication. So that was important. I didn't feel like I could call as often this agent. I mean, he helped me through this whole process and everything, but I was a little trepidatious to call him, but I did call him. But that I think it's important to also find out from your agent. And this is something, you have different types of agents. You have agents that will just go after listings, and that's really all they're trying to do is, help you through some of these steps and such, but they won't come and show your house. You'll have to show your house yourself. So if you're looking for an agent, make sure you communicate with them and say, hey, are you going to come out here and physically show my house and make the sale yourself? Or am I going to just have to show it? Are you going to physically come out here and do that? So I had to end up, kind of doing some of that myself and buying some signs to put out for an open house and all this stuff. But what's interesting is, and this is something that Andy talks about, is that anytime you reduce the price of the home, it automatically goes to the very top of the listings. And then you'll have a bunch of people coming in wanting to see the house. So every time we reduce the price a little bit, and it only happened a couple of times. once or twice. Then we got a ton of people coming in. And then the last time we did it, I finally found this young couple that wanted to buy it, and it worked out really well. But don't be afraid to call and talk to your agent. You got to have that communication, because that helps keep the stress level down for you. And if they, I would say the other thing is, don't sign a long agreement with them. So what would you say, Andy? A month? What's the longest you would sign with an agent?
Well, I would say 30 days is the best price, and then that makes the agent work. If they get too comfortable, when they have a long-term lease, like a 6-month listing. Okay, now a commercial property is different. You get a year lease, a year commission on a year contract on a thing, but a 30-day thing. Because I often had people say, Andy, I'm not going to relist with you. And I said, I don't care, because I'm going to sell it in the next 30 days. Okay. And I said, but a lot of agents want to get a long-term listing and just drag it out. And they don't really understand a marketing program. And I went through all the process of having a marketing program. There's a joke in the real estate industry that a marketing program is where we put a sign in the yard, put it in the multiple listing service, and we say hello to you. And that's it. That's 90% of the real estate agent. That's all they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I would go into things like, Rich, the sign needs to be, what we would do is go down the road in the car and try to see if we could read the sign going at 30 miles an hour according to the street, right? But you got to position these things in optimum level. He went through a lot of the size of the sign, whether it says for sale. A lot of real estate agent signs don't even say for sale on them. Mm-hmm. They just advertise. So a lot of real estate agents are incredibly inept, but they depend on the thing. So I was explaining what all the caveats of a real estate agent. Very few of them are up to the point where they're selling 80 to 100 properties a year. I mean, that's extremely high. The average real estate agent only sells about 7 a year. So, but the biggest thing I had to get with Rich was, this guy's going to make a lot of money. Call him anytime you want.
Right. You have to think about that, because they are going to make quite a bit of money. This home.
Oh yeah, a ton.
Went for quite a bit. And don't feel afraid to call them. Call them. You've got to feel comfortable with what you're doing as well, so your stress level is down. So it's extremely important.
I answered all my phone calls by cellular phone. It used to cost me $2,000 a month for the cell phone call. I'll never forget one of the funniest things ever. I was on a boat on Lake Wawasee, and we were doing a turnabout. And I told the guy, "Hold on, we're doing a turnabout." The mast was swinging from one side to the other, and he got mad because it was Sunday afternoon and I was on a boat, but I answered the phone. And he thought he had this vision. He canceled my listing, and then he called me about 2 months later and apologized. He says, "Now I get to wait 8 hours to have the guy return the voicemail." I said, "Well, you understand that answering the phone is the biggest. A real estate agent that answers the phone can sell about anything, because it's really the essence of selling a property is somebody calls up, you say, you want to go look at it. When you're in the house, you have one question. Do you want to buy it? That's about as much knowledge as you need to sell a house. Because if you just keep saying, do you want to go look at it? People are in a feeding frenzy to buy a house. Don't think that they're stopping themselves a lot. But Rich went through all these emotional things. Hey, Rich, I want to tell you look like you lost some weight.
Now I've lost about 40 pounds. Yeah, I've lost quite a bit.
Doing really good. He's getting a reboot on life. He's starting, and he's doing a lot of great things. The contracts, when you enter into a contract, though, a real estate agent should be able to tell you the aspect, the real value of a real estate agent. In my thing, there's two values. One is marketing, which very few of them actually even have an understanding of marketing. I mean, less than 5%. I had 60 different points of when we sold a property, we had a book. It had this book. It had 60 different things we could do. And we kept increasing them every week as the property was on the market, because each one of them costs money, right, and time. And so you just keep increasing the amount of marketing. And it was very, very, very extensive for commercial. But when you're entering into a contract, you have to they have to be able to explain like a meeting of the minds. There's a legal thing that you have to be able to like a contract with the person that doesn't speak the same language is very complicated. Has to be in writing. There's like 8 points to a contract. Earnest money is thing. So I would go through all these things. And when a person cannot explain a contract and all the elements of a contract, they haven't learned things. I was a licensed real estate instructor. Okay, I was not just a broker, but I also became much more involved in it because I had purchased like 60 houses. So when you're actually buying and selling your own houses, your emotional, your ability to learn is very high. Like Rich learned a lot because he was
Oh
wanting to
yeah.
sell his farm.
Actually, I think I could do because I've been through so much with this and learned so much from Andy and doing it. I've learned so much about what agent that to go with, what agent not to go with. And I think I could probably do it for sale by owner myself after all
Yeah,
this, but I would not
you did.
I would not do this I would not recommend that right off the bat. If you're trying to sell your home, you've got to learn all these things. And I went through a lot of learning, and now I feel that I could probably do that.
Tell us about how you staged the house, staging the house, setting it up. You went
Well,
through.
we virtually staged it. So the house was okay. This is something that Andy had talked about, and that you and the agent as well, that you want to make the home move-in ready. So everything is cleaned, everything's painted, everything's remodeled. And there was a home actually just down the street from uh, my home that we were selling, and they didn't do anything. They just left all their old furniture in there, and they literally probably lost, because they did that, probably $150,000 instead of going and renovating it, clearing all that out, and making it move-in ready. So I moved everything out of my home. I put some of it behind a storage building, and that's an added benefit, is to have a storage building. This is a 12 by 20 that I had on the property. I have still there, but anyway, I moved it behind the storage building, and I still had some things inside the storage building. And actually, for the renovation, I had to live in the storage building while they were renovating it, so I had some place to stay. And you just want to make it clean and presentable, and so that's extremely important. So, and then what we did, instead of having the actual furniture come into the home, which you can do, and it makes it look very nice, but that's extra money, as that we just virtually staged it. And I mean, with technology now, it looked just like the room actually had the furniture in it. And so we had the living room that was staged, and then one of the bedrooms, and was virtually staged. And then another thing is to also have a 360 view of the rooms and the property, and have an aerial view. Aerial views seem to be very popular now. I don't know if that's a must or anything, but we had aerial views, the 360s of the interior, and all that kind of stuff. So the photos really, they make a big difference too. And this young couple that eventually bought it, they had looked at actually about 20 homes. They were kept looking, and this home, my home, was in one of the first subdivisions of Cobb County in Marietta, Georgia. And it's very heavily wooded, and it's a lot of these new construction, they just tear down all the trees. It's just no trees around. So they like that. It's very quiet, but it was very close to their work. So it was the old real estate thing where you say location, location, location. It was perfect for them. And they have a dog, and there's a park just down the street, and recreational activities like less than a 5-minute walk. The Kroger is less than 8-minute walk from their home. Everything was just perfect for them. This is exactly what they wanted. So,
Well, you did real good, Rich. I'm real proud of you. And
thank you.
there was a lot of talk, and he called me a lot. Like I was trying to say, call the realtor, right? And I said, but I was much more available in a way, and easier to call and contact and reply to things. So I'm but that was the reason why I sold like 80 to 100 properties, because I was always available 24 hours a day. And I don't get upset when somebody calls me because I don't know. I'm always
Well,
laughing.
that's another thing is that you have to kind of extract yourself from the property too, because you can't. So when you have someone come in and they look at the property, you really can't be there because you still have emotional ties. And if they say something negative, you might get upset. And I actually get upset with one realtor that came in, which it was my fault, but they started acting like they already owned the property. And I had to say, no, you don't. And so that didn't work out, and didn't work out for their clients either because the realtor pushed all my buttons. And so that didn't go through. So realtors, remember, have a little respect for the people selling the home too. So, but it worked out for the best because this young couple found it. A very nice realtor who did represent them well. Don't get me wrong. She represented them very well. But they looked at the home, and before they even left, but right after they viewed it, they made an offer. So, it's because the way the home was renovated. And I spent a lot of time getting the exterior to look nice and to be cleaned up. And, the curb appeal, which we haven't talked about, is very important as well. But you don't have to put new plants in. You just have to, sometimes perhaps you do, but I just cleaned up the property. I made it look very clean, well kept, maintained, and that just helped to sell it as well. So.
I talked a lot about the landscaping. In Fort Wayne, when I was selling property, we call cookie cutter houses. Most houses, even when they're called custom, are cookie cutter. And what they do is they have a design and then they flip it over and they go back and forth. And I have taken clients down a street and they couldn't see that it was the same house, but all they saw was the landscaping. And if I was going to sell property to make a large amount of money, I would focus a lot on the landscaping and the smell, right? And I would go through all these things with Rich and how to, but there was a lot of work here. I mean, he had a lot of work to do and a lot of possessions. Okay.
Yeah, that's really tough. You don't realize how many things you have. So I had a big yard sale for about 3 days, and then I still had stuff behind, and I gave away probably to the thrift store, had them come out twice, probably 25 huge boxes of things, maybe more than that. And talking about the odor and smell, that's extremely important. So the first thing that the renovators did is they used Kills, which is a paint, uh, and to cut down any odor that would be in the home, the old musty odor. And then right after they did that, the minute you walked in the home, there was no odor. It felt like it was a brand new home. So, excuse me, that's a very important, not to have that old musty smell. And they knew when I saw them do that, I knew they knew exactly what they were doing. So,
Well, I'm happy for you, and we got it. I think we've went through most of the issues.
yep.
One of my dream jobs, in a lot of ways, would be just to help people emotionally, mentally go through the process of selling their property, because you make a lot more money when see the agent makes money on the percentage of sales, but really what they really, contrary to what you think, an agent doesn't care about getting a bigger price. They want it lower. They want it really low so they can sell it fast and maybe double dip it, get both sides of the coin. And so, contrary, there's a lot of myths about how agents work. They are, and I was explaining these daily with Rich, explaining how the realtor was looking at it. And it's a tough thing to sell a property because uh, I would say, my opinion, 80% of agents are incompetent. Okay, but they get the job done because the buyer wants it and the seller wants the deal. If it wasn't so much that the buyer wants the deal and the seller wants it, you can't stop them. Once they want it, they want it. Okay, can't stop them. But incompetent. It took me years to learn what a bad closing was. I always think of this laugh. I sold over 100, 200 houses, 300 houses before I knew what a bad closing is. A bad closing is when you go to the closing and all the contracts not negotiated right, and you have to like fight over the fridge at the closing. And that's when you got an agent that's really. So if you ever hear of a person having a bad closing, that means the realtor wrote up a bad contract. They don't want to address all these emotional issues like who's going to own this. So they just get real sloppy and they just show up for closing and the closing agent close it. Now he was very fortunate because your closing happened in, I think it was like 45 minutes, right?
45 minutes, but there's something very important that needs to be said. You have to make sure the people that are buying your property, they'll come through and they'll look at it and there's a final walkthrough. So I knew exactly what issues they had with the home because I have a dog, Harley, and he had scratched up and chewed on some of the molding and such. And that was something they brought up. So I addressed that with the local handyman, that great handyman, AJ. And then he fixed that. Then I came back and painted it. I made sure all the floors were cleaned. I put like a sealer kind of thing that you do about every month or so on the floors to make them look really nice. I mean, I went out of my way to make sure that they loved everything and there was no issues. There was one issue at closing. One, that was it. It's because there was a minor issue with the gutter work. And I actually said, I'll go ahead and take care of that. I'll fix that after, I'm still fixing a couple things because I want this young couple, they're about 25, 24, and to be happy with their home. And they saw that I was working very hard to make them happy. And when they went through the final walkthrough, it's like there was nothing that came up. That's it. They were happy. So I would say make your home look clean and address any issues that they may have, so you won't go through all this stuff at closing. That's why closing was 45 minutes, So
Rich, how fast was the money available? This was a question
now
he had because he thought they was going to get it like a week later.
I thought he was going to get it like 3 days later or something, or next business day or something. Within 3 hours, less than 3 hours, the money was available. Now I use Wells Fargo, so maybe that has something to do with it. But Andy's saying no, it's just they have to do that. It has to be in there quickly.
That's the value of a closing. The closing is guaranteed money, and it has to be. So it's like a cash deal. Okay, even though there is wire transfer or whatever they do, the money's available immediately. You don't have to wait like 2 weeks or something. There are cases where contingencies are thing, and the inspections or something cause some things, and you can do all sorts of creative contracts, but generally most deals are pretty simple. Okay, Rich.
It was amazing. It was amazing how quickly it came through. But I'm sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rich. I appreciate talking to you, and I wanted to walk. This is not a complicated thing. I mean, especially, but it's emotional, and that's where a lot of real estate agents don't understand. This is an emotional thing more than it is a complicated thing. But when a real estate agent doesn't understand a contract, how to stage a property, how to market a property, they're as confused often as the client. Okay, but about 30% of agents are becoming agents and 30% are quitting at all times. So as a rule, I would say try to get an agent that's been in business for about 7 years. Okay, thank you very much, Rich.
One thing before we go, though, I could not have done this without Andy, and I'm not just saying that. This would not have happened and would not have gone through without Andy's help. So thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
A little bit longer. It already took about a year or so.
Yeah.
But I was grateful to do it because Rich was easy and he was, I like talking to people, and an agent that doesn't like to talk to people on the phone, don't use them. Okay. Bottom line. I mean, an agent's got to be kind of capable of, it's a consulting business. You're kind of like the person's best friend until they sell the property. Okay. I'm Andy Lee Graham. This is Rich Gedney. I'm here and you're not. Why not? Bye.
See ya.